Thank you for watching our videos. Please subscribe if you're able to. I'd really appreciate that. What we're looking at here is a fairly ordinary 1969 Timex Marlin. As you can tell, it does not work. What we're going to do in this video is we're going to teach our viewers how to change out the movement on these particular watches. And this would apply to all Timex watches from the 50s into the 70s. It's the same, pretty much the same process. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to take off the crystal. I don't want to take the movement out of the case yet because the case makes it really steady. So the first thing we're going to do is take off the crystal using this. And then after I've done that, then we'll look at the next video. You've seen me use this tool many times in our videos, so I don't need to show you how to use it. It's kind of self-explanatory. It's a crystal remover. The next step we have here is I put a piece of paper underneath the hands to protect the dial. There are fancier ways to do this, and there are plastic things that you can buy on eBay that look better, but this does the same purpose and it doesn't cost anything. What we have here is our hand removers, watch hand removers. This one is kind of older. It's made by J. Bowley and it's made in the 1950s to the best of my knowledge. So if you want one like this, I would recommend it, and I think it does a really good job. You'll notice how steady that is. A lot of the new ones are kind of rickety and they're not built that way. Okay, the next thing we do here is what I try to do is I try to line up the hands where they're perfectly vertical. So I'm going to move. Okay. And if you've watched any of my videos before, what I just did right there is kind of a no-no. Whenever you move hands, you're supposed to move it clockwise, but then there's this bump right here that this hand couldn't navigate over, so I had to move it back a little bit. Now we're going to be using this tool here. And we go as far to the surface as we can. This is going to be impossible to film. Okay, just give me just a second. It's really a little bit difficult to do this on camera. Okay, what I've done here is I've taken the hands off the dial and I've put them back over here. And what I did is, when I took them off, I made sure that their position was the same as they were on the dial. In both cases, this side of the hand and this side of the hand were both facing up. I do put this piece of tape over them, and that way they don't go flying off, and I just barely secure them with that tape. Some people will think that's the worst idea in the world, but it really does work if you don't press it into the hands, but just gently secure them with that tape. The residue doesn't get on them. Okay, here in a minute we'll be ready for the next thing. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put this crystal back on. That way when I'm working on the back, I'm not going to damage that dial. So I'm going to do this off camera, but I'm going to go in reverse. I'm going to use this tool again, and I'm going to put that crystal right back on. Okay, as you can see, I took the back of the watch off. My preference is these antique case back openers. They're very thin, very sharp, and I just like them a whole lot better than the modern ones. Even the ones made by Bergen or Bergen or whatever. These are really nice. You can still find these on eBay occasionally. They're a lot of money, but they're about $25, but they're worth every penny of it. Okay, here in a moment we're going to do the next step. The next step is to remove the crown and the stem. So here we have this horrible illustration, which is really horrible, but I'm not an artist, so this, believe it or not, that is a representation of this. And if Timex saw that, they'd probably cry because it's horrible. But anyway, out here is the crown, and here's the stem. The stem goes through the case into the movement. right here to the right there, is that screw. Camera, see that?
Yeah.
That screw, you unscrew that a little bit. Can the camera catch that? It's tiny. If you can, that's okay.
I think so. I can't see.
Yeah, it's okay. It's just so small. What you do, the first step is you loosen up that screw. And that screw is actually connected. That screw is actually connected to this piece here. So what you do is you remove that screw, and it has a plate over it. So there's metal that goes on this side and over the stem. You loosen that screw just enough, and then you pry up on this. Now when I say pry up, I don't mean harshly. You just barely, gently pry that up until it has enough room for the stem to move out. I use screwdrivers like that. This is an antique one, or one probably from the 40s or 50s. It was made in Italy. So when you're buying high-grade screwdrivers, you have two options. You can either buy antique ones that are very high quality, or you can go with a company like Barrajon, or however you pronounce it. It just costs a fortune. Even though it's a little bit messed up here, it still works great. I would recommend just buying some older screwdrivers. They're generally, if they're made in the 1960s or before, they're very high quality. Okay, here in a minute we'll go to the next step. Okay, I forgot to mention earlier, the best screwdriver to use for this is a size 5. But you can get by with a size 4, but size 5 is best. A size 6 will not fit in that screw. Okay, as I think I already said, but maybe I didn't, I put the crown and stem underneath that piece of paper so it wouldn't roll off anywhere. Continuing here with my illustration, you have these 1, 2, 3, 4, these 4 tabs. Alright, can the camera see that right there?
I think so.
Like that little shiny dot?
Yeah.
And then
yeah, I can
here's
see
another one. Okay, so altogether there's 4 of those. So these 4 tabs that we talked about connect this porcelain colored metal from the back plate that's just behind it. So there's 2 layers there that's going to be impossible to see, but those tabs that we were just talking about hold the porcelain color or the silver colored dial to the back plate. So that's what these 4 tabs do, these 4 that we already talked about. Don't worry about those, okay? There's 3 more tabs, and again, forgive me of the crudity of this, but I'm not an artist. We've removed the stem and the crown, but I still show it here so you kind of know where the 3 position is. What we do is that there's 3 more tabs, and they're going from the back plate into the movement. These tabs connect the movement to the back plate, and these tabs connect the back plate to the dial. So in order to remove the movement from the back plate, we have to gently pry up these 3 things, prongs, or whatever you want to call them. And again, we have to be very careful. Some of these prongs are 50 years old, and if we break one, it's not good. So what we do is we gently, slowly bend those back, and then we'll be okay. I'm going to see if we can find one here. Here's one right there.
Yeah, I see it real good.
You see it? Okay, so there's 3 of those. Here's the 3 o'clock position. This is what it's going to look like. There's going to be one here, and one there. And what we're going to do is we're going to bend those back, and then here in a minute we'll do the next step. So what we did is we removed the movement from the back plate. As we've already said, the back plate is connected to the dial. So this is not one piece of metal, it's actually a layer of two metals. So what we did is we gently pulled back on those. Can the camera catch that pretty decently?
Yeah.
Those little tiny prongs. It's important that we do that slowly, carefully. If you do it slowly, they will not break off. If you do it fast, they could very well break off. And as you can see, this was, well, I was about to say this is made in England. I don't know if it was made in England or just cased in England, but certainly this part of the watch, the dial and the back plate were made in England. Okay, here in the next minute we're going to go ahead and I have a size 24. Let me size 24. A size 24 movement. How do we know what size movement we require? Let's go ahead and look at the dial. And I can't even see it without my magnifying glass, but underneath the 6 there, it should say 2469 on the last 4 digits. On the last 4. You know, if the camera can't catch it, that's fine. If you can't catch it.
Yeah, I can.
You can?
Yeah.
Okay, so the 24 is the movement, and the year is 1969. Okay, I'm going to go into my, we use this pillow here, and these cost almost nothing on eBay. So you just put that on there. Okay, I'm going to go get a movement out of my parts drawer, and then we're going to put that on there. So what we're going to do is we're going to be using this 24 movement. Early Marlin watches from about 1958 to about 1962-63 used the 22 movement. And then somewhere around 65-ish they switched over to the 24. Okay, so here's the new movement, the replacement movement, and the old movement. And we can see that they are identical. Okay, we'll take up the next step here in a minute. Okay, so here we are, we're looking at the old movement that's no longer working. We notice this piece of it here, in which the hands will be placed upon. It's a little tube thing with a gear on the other side on it. Let's go ahead and use our pliers extremely delicately. In fact, I want to say that might just fall right off. There it goes. Okay. So there's that little tiny piece. So what we're going to be doing now is we're going to be putting that tiny piece onto this shaft here that you can just barely see. I'm not sure if the camera can catch that or not.
Yeah, the camera can see it.
Okay. Okay, what we have here is this little tiny piece. I'm using Rotoco. I'm going to place it right down. It's going to be impossible for the camera to see because my hand's in the way, but we place it right down. On that shaft. Okay, so now it's placed on that shaft. Now what we have to do is we have to just very gently push it down. Now here are some gears right here, and that has gears. Let me go ahead and see if I can find a pen to illustrate this. There's this wheel here, that's right here, that has all these gears. The piece we just took looks like this. And it has gears all over the side. It has gears. And you place that, and here's the stem. You place that down onto there with the tubular side up, of course. And those gears on this thing have to mash into, or mesh into, the gears on here. Just like you would think of gears. Like my fingers going together. Can the camera kind of catch that?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's the next little step. This little piece will probably not come with your replacement movement that you order. You'll need to take that little piece off of the movement that you just have that's broken. That's the reason why you always save your old movements. This gear here came off the old movement when we took it off. We don't want to throw that away because we'll be needing it in just a few minutes. Okay, this little piece here goes on next. This is the piece we're talking about. Okay, so that goes over the stem shaft here. And we're going to use our screwdriver as best we can to kind of... There, okay. Now, what this does is it should be rotate. See if it does or not. Okay, can the camera see it that it's rotating?
Yeah, you can see it.
Okay. Alright, so now that we have that done, what we're going to do next, that's the part that the hour hand is going to set on. So now we're going to put the dial on. So what we have here is I put the movement onto the front of the watch, the dial. Okay, and if we ever wonder how to position that, we always remember that the crown comes out where the 3 is. So I put that on, but now the next step is to move these prongs back to where they were to hold the back plate onto the dial. Okay, we're going to do that off camera, and then we'll move on to the next step. Okay, I hope that you're enjoying this video as we continue. I thought this video would be especially nice for people to have an opportunity to watch. I couldn't find another video on YouTube that went through a step-by-step process on how to do this. So I hope that you're enjoying this video. Okay, let's look at this. Here's the movement, of course, and as you can tell now, I've connected the movement to the dial. Okay. This is very hard to see. I'm just going to point out one of them. Can the camera catch that little prong?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, anyway, there's 3 of them that are just like that. Here's where the 3 o'clock position is. Notice we're calibrating this, or it's the same. This is just a blown up picture of that, but I'm not an artist, so just bear with me. In the movement, you have 3 things going on here. The outer circle, as is very barely visible on this, that is the dial. The one beneath that is called the back plate. This here is called the movement. Now the movement has 2 separate layers. This layer here is lower, and then this part here is raised off of the surface. So if you want to, you can think of that as kind of like a mountain. Here it's all flat, then all of a sudden there's a mountain here that's flat too, or it's raised up probably about 3 millimeters up, and that's completely flat up here. Okay, we can see that little wheel there that's moving. Alright, that's kind of, we call that the hairspring wheel. That is where that is located. Then we see this wheel over here, which is actually a gear. Can the camera kind of catch that?
Yeah.
That represents this here. Okay, so there's a tab here, a tab there, and a tab here. When you put that movement onto the dial, you'll want to calibrate the 3 position is where the stem will go into, and in fact I know that for many people that's somewhat obvious because that's the only place at which the stem can be inserted, but I thought I'd mention that anyway. Then you carefully place the movement onto that dial plate, and you have these, if you will, 3 fingers up in the air, and then you gently place that right on top of those 3 fingers so that they come through the movement, so that they emerge from the movement as you are lowering it down. And then when they emerge through that, then you bend these little prongs back. And then when you do that, it will secure the movement to the back plate. We need to be careful though that when we are bending these down, those are made out of very thin 45, 50, 55-year-old metal, depending how old your Timex is. We need to do that very slowly, and we need to get it right the first time. You don't want to bend them back and forth or anything like that. Just bend them over. They don't necessarily have to be bent over absolutely perfectly. Just good enough to really secure that movement. Okay, here in a minute we're going to go to the next step. Okay, now we have the watch movement on the watch cushion here with the dial facing up, obviously. I just wanted to mention that a watch cushion pad is what this is called, and they go for about $10 for one on eBay, or you can get $15 of them on eBay for $15. One for $10, two for $15. We at Claude Hyram's Classics do not sell these, but you can buy them real easy on eBay. Also, I'm going to be using some Rodeco. Okay, Rodeco, and if you type in 6033, that's kind of the model number. And it costs about $10 on eBay. And when you get the Rodeco package, it's going to be, it's in a 3D rectangle. It's going to come into a box shape, and it's going to be about 2 inches. Anyway, it's going to be in a package that looks like that. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is, as you remember, we had our hands and a crown stem over here. I am not 100% sure if this stem and crown will go with the case of the watch that we have. They used the number 24 movement for various different case sizes. Some of them were a little bit bigger than this, and some of them were larger. So this is kind of a universal stem and crown. So what we have done is we have kept the original. Next, as you remember, we have 2 hands, the hour hand and the minute hand. Some watches have a second hand. I put the tape on these, number 1, to keep them from flying off, but number 2, to kind of help understand that I put them in the same position in which I took them off. So this is the top side, this is the top side, and I'll put them, that makes it a lot easier when reinstalling them. Okay, so what we did is I used our Rodeco, and I picked up the hour hand, and then I placed it here on this dial. Then, keeping that hour hand completely horizontal with the dial, I very carefully used 2 flat hand screwdrivers to place it on there. There are tools that you can use that place that on there too. That's something along the lines of a hollow pencil tip, something along that line. But here I use 2 screwdrivers very carefully on either side, just very gently pushed it on there. These hour hands are held on just by friction. Okay, now that we've put on the hour hand, now we're going to go ahead and put on the minute hand in the exact same way. I use Rotico. This is going to be impossible to see, and I'm using my fingers, and there's going to be people who say, well, that's the worst possible way to do it, but okay. Then what I do is I get these magnifying things, and then I keep it horizontal. Okay, let's see what we got at this point. Okay. Okay, it seems to be working okay. The minute hand seems to be pointed up in the air a little bit too much. Let me take it as a quick look at what we got going on here. It does look like I have the minute hand in the right side facing up. So when we go to put this back in the case, the whole watch, and the crystal, then we'll see if that minute hand is touching the crystal. My guess it's not, and my guess is the reason why it's elevated is this a very simple reason to be able to move over these raised hour markers. The 3, the 6, the 9, and the 12, as well as these other things, are raised off the surface, and that's not a problem for the hour hand because the hour hand is so short, but the minute hand has to be raised up quite a bit to go over those. Okay, and here in our next step in just a moment, we'll be putting this back into our watch. Okay, as you can tell, I went ahead and removed the stem and the crown. And I believe I talked about that earlier in the video as to how to do that. Now what we're ready to do is we're going to be placing this very carefully into the case here. Okay, then we put it back on here. Now I'm in a situation here because I'm not sure which one of these to use. I'm going to go ahead and start with the one that came with this brand new movement. We're going to go in there. Let's see here. Okay. Looks like it may not be the right size. See if I can get it out. So what we did is I went ahead and went back with the original crown and stem. And earlier in the video I talked about how to remove a stem and crown, and what you do is you just do that in reverse. You push that into the movement, and then there's this little arm that goes over the stem that needs to be lined up. And under magnification you'll know how to do that real easy when you see it with your magnification. Okay, so let's go ahead and put this back on, our little retaining deal here. This keeps the movement where it needs to be. It also helps it be shock resistant. The next thing we have here is the back lid. And I'm kind of a stickler for this. I always like for the lid to be perfectly right, so it's going to face in the correct way. So it's just really important to me that it be that way. I don't like it to be crooked. Okay, then we kind of click it together, and then there we have our watch. Works real nice. And what we'll do is we'll set it at 10 o'clock, and we'll wind it up, and then here in about 5 minutes we'll see if it has moved move to 5 minutes. Okay, so here's the watch that we've been working on. It's all nicely finished up, and it's keeping good time. What we did is we just finished it off by putting the backpack on and putting on this new leather band. I'm going to be putting this on eBay for $75. It has a new movement and a new band, as we know. On the below the 6, it has this code 2014. This means it's a Marlin. 24 is the movement number, 24, and the year is 1969. If you're restoring one of these old watches and you need a size 24 movement, if you can't find one on eBay, contact me, and I usually sell them for about $25. Just some of the things you're going to need. What we used is Rotico, a hand remover, tweezers, a couple of screwdrivers. You can either use this type of crystal remover, or if you have one of these, it works a lot easier. A loop and a cushion. And I'm not sure if that's everything that we use, but it's probably almost all of it, probably. Okay, well great. I hope they enjoyed this video. We have about 120 videos on YouTube now. Please subscribe, and please tell your friends about the video. Like I said earlier, we did this video because I was unaware of any other video on YouTube that went step by step by step by step on how to do all that on an older Timex. This particular process will work on any Timex that I'm aware of in the 1950s all the way through probably the early 1980s. Well, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and have a great night.